Welcome to this deep dive. We'll be exploring Eckhart Tolle's The Power of Now together. We'll extract the most valuable insights from this spiritual guide. It's like we're on a journey toward inner peace, wouldn't you say?
Yeah.
And a deeper understanding of ourselves along the way.
Definitely. What I find fascinating about The Power of Now is that Tolle suggests that true happiness isn't something I'll find in the future. It's already here, within us, now. He really challenges that traditional idea that happiness is something we have to work for.
Yeah, that we have to chase it. So you're saying we don't have to strive for some far-off state of bliss. That's pretty radical, isn't it?
It is, but Tolle lays out a big problem first before he gets to the solution.
Oh.
It's the pain body, this accumulation of past pain that we all carry inside.
Yeah.
And the thing is, this pain body, it wants to survive, so it seeks out more negative experiences, like it wants to feed on them. You can almost picture it as a grumpy creature.
Oh, wow.
Hiding in your subconscious, waiting to be triggered. So think about those times when you maybe overreact to something, you know?
Oh,
Like a minor inconvenience sets you off.
totally.
That could be your pain body hijacking your emotions.
So this pain body, it's basically all of the hurts and traumas we've experienced.
Right.
And it's still influencing us, how we react in the present.
Absolutely. But just being aware of that is so important. It's the first step to freedom. Once we recognize how much influence the pain body has, we can start to untangle ourselves from it.
That's where the power of the present moment comes in.
Exactly.
That's Tolle's big idea. Shifting our awareness to the now.
Yeah. It can help break that cycle of negativity that the pain body thrives on.
But how do we actually do that? Shift our awareness? I mean, is it like meditation or something?
It can be that. But honestly, it can be simpler than that. Just bring your attention to your breath. Notice the sensations in your body. Pay attention to the sights and sounds around you.
Okay.
It's about becoming fully present, right here, right now,
Without judgment, you mean?
without judgment, without resistance, just being.
I'm trying it right now, focusing on my breath, and I swear there's already a shift. I feel calmer somehow.
Exactly, you're tuning in to what is, instead of getting lost in thoughts about the past or worrying about the future.
So instead of replaying old mistakes or stressing about what might happen, we can find peace just by being present.
Yes.
I can see how liberating that could be. But if we're just accepting everything as it is, does that mean we don't take action? Just let things happen?
That's a common misunderstanding about Tolle's teachings. Surrender doesn't mean you become passive. It's about aligning your actions with a higher consciousness.
Oh, okay. Surrendered action, right? I remember him using that phrase,
Yeah.
doing infused with being. Can you give me an example of what that might look like in everyday life?
Absolutely. Let's say you're working on a challenging project.
Okay.
Instead of approaching it with all that stress and anxiety,
Yeah.
you could try bringing your full presence to each task.
Good.
So you're still acting, but you're not resisting the process.
So I'm focusing on the quality of the work, not the outcome.
Precisely. You're working from a place of awareness, not resistance.
I see. So we're bringing that sense of presence into everything we do, whether it's washing the dishes, talking to someone, or working on a big project.
Exactly. And that brings us to something really interesting about Tolle's view of relationships. He suggests that relationships aren't actually here to make us happy.
Wait, what? You just said relationships aren't meant to make us happy. That goes against everything I've ever heard.
I know, right?
It does.
It sounds counterintuitive, but Tolle thinks if we cling to that idea of relationships as a source of happiness, we're just setting ourselves up for disappointment.
Okay, so if relationships aren't about finding happiness, what are they about?
He sees relationships as mirrors, reflecting our own patterns of thinking and behavior back to us. They offer opportunities for growth, for waking up, for understanding ourselves and the world better.
So instead of expecting our partner to complete us or to fix our problems, we can use the relationship as a path to self-discovery and transformation.
You got it.
That's a huge shift in perspective. But how does that work in practice? Because relationships can be messy and full of challenges. How can we use Tolle's ideas when we're dealing with conflict or really difficult emotions?
Oh, that's where non-resistance comes in. Remember how Tolle talks about how what we resist persists? When we try to push away those difficult emotions or try to bury them, we just end up giving them even more power over us.
So I shouldn't try to push away feelings like anger or resentment. Just let them wash over me. That feels kind of risky.
Not exactly wash over you. It's more about observing those feelings, detaching from them a bit. It's like imagine sitting by a river watching the current go by. You see leaves and twigs and maybe even trash floating along, but you wouldn't jump in and try to grab everything that goes past.
I get it. You're saying we can acknowledge our emotions without letting them sweep us away. But how do we actually do that, especially when we're feeling really triggered or totally overwhelmed?
Tolle talks about bringing awareness to your body. When you feel those difficult emotions coming up, just notice where they are in your body. Is there tightness in your chest? Clenching in your jaw? Try just observing those sensations without judgment. That can help create space.
Between you and the emotion.
Right.
I've tried that before, and it's amazing how quickly a feeling can just vanish when you bring your attention to it. It's like you're taking away its power somehow just by noticing it.
Exactly. And that space you create, that detachment, helps you respond to the situation better. You're not reacting out of fear or anger anymore, but from a place of awareness and choice.
It's not about becoming some emotionless robot.
No.
We're just learning to handle our emotions better so we can respond to challenges better.
Right, with more clarity.
I like that. It feels really empowering.
Yeah.
But what about when the present moment feels like just too much? Even Tolle says humanity is kind of dangerously insane. How can we find peace in the now when things feel that bad?
That's a really interesting point. But Tolle isn't saying we should just ignore the world's problems or act like everything's perfect.
Okay.
He's just saying that when we resist what's happening, or we're trying to change things we can't control, that's when we suffer the most.
So instead of getting wrapped up in all the drama of what's happening out there,
Yeah,
we can focus on what we can control.
exactly. Our own thoughts and feelings and actions.
So by focusing on our inner state,
Yes.
we can actually change the energy around us.
You got it. It's like when you have a room full of people who are super anxious, if one person walks in with a really calm presence, that can change the whole atmosphere. Subtly, it does.
That makes sense. Our energy affects people. So by working on our own inner peace, we're helping ourselves and making the world a little bit better. It's not about ignoring the world's problems.
No.
It's about engaging with them in a better way.
More consciously, more compassionately. And that leads us to another key part of Tolle's teachings, the power of surrender. He's very clear that surrender is not about giving up or letting people walk all over you.
Right.
It's about aligning yourself with a higher consciousness, letting go of the need to control everything.
Letting go of the ego's need for control.
Exactly, and allowing life to unfold as it should.
Now I see how that connects back to surrendered action. It's about trusting that there's a bigger plan, even when things don't go the way we want them to.
Exactly, letting go of that need to micromanage every little detail.
Okay, that sounds liberating, but also kind of scary.
How so?
What if I let go of control and everything falls apart?
What if it all falls into place in a way you never imagined?
That's a really good question. You're saying that by surrendering to the now, we open ourselves up to new possibilities, ones that our limited ego can't even grasp.
Exactly. Which brings us to Tolle's view of the body. He has a very different perspective than traditional spiritual teachings. They often see the body as an obstacle to enlightenment. Right, but he sees it as a powerful doorway to truth.
This is what he calls the Sermon on the Body, right? Where he talks about using our inner body to find stillness and presence.
Exactly. He says that when we become deeply aware of what's happening in our bodies, we tap into a much deeper level of awareness.
It's like we've always had this amazing tool for spiritual awakening,
Yeah,
but we forgot how to use it.
I like that. It's not about denying the body or trying to rise above it. It's about embracing it, honoring it, using it to grow spiritually.
Tolle even says that we can access what he calls the unmanifested through the body,
He does.
the formless, timeless source of everything. Hold on, the unmanifested. That sounds pretty mystical. Can you break that down a little?
Think of it as that fundamental energy from which all things come, the pure potential that exists before anything takes form.
Okay, I think I'm starting to get a sense of what you mean. It's like a blank canvas before the painting or the silence before the music starts.
Exactly. And Tolle says we can tap into that field through practices like deep listening, mindful breathing, even just becoming aware of the space around us. When we cultivate stillness in our bodies and minds, we create a space for that unmanifested energy to flow through us.
That's a beautiful image. It's like we're
Yeah.
clearing out the static so we can tune into a higher frequency. But how does that idea of the unmanifested apply to our everyday lives?
It's about recognizing that we are more than just our physical bodies, our thoughts and emotions.
Okay.
We're connected to this vast field of pure awareness. And when we connect with that part of ourselves, we tap into a source of peace and joy and creativity.
Always available to us.
Yes, like we're plugging into a universal power source.
This is starting to make a lot of sense, but I got to admit, I'm still struggling with this idea that relationships aren't about happiness. I mean, we all want to be happy in our relationships, right?
Of course. Tolle is just challenging us to look a little deeper, to question what we think true happiness is and where it comes from.
So he's not saying we shouldn't want joyful, fulfilling relationships.
Yeah, not all.
He's just saying we can't expect our partner to be the only source of our happiness.
Exactly. True happiness comes from within. It's a state of being that we cultivate through things like presence, surrender, and acceptance.
And when we bring that happiness into our relationships, they become a reflection of that. That's beautiful. But what about when things get really tough, like when there's conflict or really tough emotions? What does Tolle say about navigating those rough waters?
He has some great insights about that. He actually thinks those challenging times can be powerful opportunities for growth, for transformation.
Wait, you mean those times when I just want to run out of the room screaming are actually good for me? I don't know about that.
No, it sounds crazy. But Tolle thinks those limit situations, as he calls them, force us to face our deepest fears, to let go of things we're clinging to.
They shake us out of our comfort zone and push us to evolve.
Yes, they can be like a spiritual boot camp.
Making us stronger and more resilient.
Exactly. They can also reveal how much love and compassion we have. When we can be there for someone who's going through something really hard, just hold space for them without judging or trying to fix it. That's a powerful expression of love.
It's about just being there for each other, not trying to control the situation, just letting it be.
Exactly. And that brings us to one of Tolle's most profound insights, the difference between pain and suffering. He says that pain is just part of life. We all experience loss, disappointment, physical discomfort. That's just being human.
We can't avoid pain, but suffering, the emotional anguish we add on top of it, that's optional.
You got it. Suffering happens when we resist pain, when we fight against it, or we make it part of who we are.
So if we can just accept the pain, let it be there without judging it or resisting it, we can keep it from becoming suffering.
Precisely. This doesn't mean we suddenly enjoy pain. We just acknowledge it as a part of life without turning it into some big personal problem.
Okay, that makes sense. But when I'm actually experiencing pain, it's hard to remember that.
Yeah.
That it's temporary and I have a choice in how I respond to it.
Yeah.
Any advice on how to actually put that into practice?
That's where mindfulness comes in. When you practice being present in the moment, you train yourself to notice your thoughts and feelings. You let them come and go without getting carried away.
So I'm learning to observe my experience instead of being totally identified with it.
You got it. That shift in perspective makes a huge difference in how we experience pain. It's like you create a buffer zone between yourself and how intense the experience is.
Giving me more space to choose a better response.
Yes, it's like that Buddhist saying, pain is inevitable, suffering is optional.
Right.
Tolle draws from a lot of those same wisdom traditions.
He does.
He really emphasizes mindfulness, acceptance, non-attachment. Those are the paths to freedom from suffering. And it's amazing how those principles apply to so many things. Our well-being, relationships, how we understand the world.
It is empowering to realize we have more control than we think we do. And like you said, as we build more peace within, we're making the world more peaceful too. That's a cool ripple effect.
It is. And it brings us to how Tolle looks at death. He thinks that our fear of death comes from identifying with the ego, that limited sense of self we build from our thoughts and beliefs.
So if we let go of our attachment to the ego,
Yeah.
we can let go of our fear of death. Sounds easy, but I bet it's pretty hard to do.
It definitely takes practice. But remember, Tolle's all about being more aware of the present moment, and when we're truly present, right here, right now,
Yeah.
there's no space for fear. Fear is always about something that might happen later.
So by focusing on the now, we kind of dissolve the fear that comes from worrying about the past and the future.
Exactly. And as we get more comfortable with the present moment, we also get more comfortable with impermanence, that everything is always changing, that nothing lasts forever.
And that death is just a natural part of life.
Exactly. And accepting that, being okay with the impermanence of everything, that can actually help us live more fully now, to really appreciate life, to savor every experience.
It's like that saying, live every day like it's your last.
Yeah.
Right. But you're not saying we should throw caution to the wind and be reckless?
No. No, it's about appreciating how precious life is and making the most of each moment, living with a sense of purpose and gratitude.
So it's not about denying that we're going to die. It's about embracing life, knowing that everything is fleeting and every moment is a gift.
Exactly. Which brings us to one of the biggest questions Tolle asks. If we can become enlightened, truly free from suffering, does that mean we never feel pain or sadness again?
That's a question I've been wondering about too. If we're really living in the now, accepting what is, does that make us immune to difficult emotions?
That's such a great question, and it leads to a really important point that Tolle makes. Pain is a part of life.
But suffering is a choice.
Right. It's like pain is that initial injury, and suffering is like pouring salt into the wound.
Perfect analogy. We don't have to suffer on top of our pain.
Exactly. We can experience pain without making it into a huge drama, without letting it define us.
So how do we actually do that? How do we keep pain from becoming suffering?
Tolle says the key is to notice the pain without becoming the pain. So instead of saying, I am in pain, observe the pain as a sensation. Recognize that it won't last forever.
Create a space between myself and the experience. Realize that I am not my pain.
Yes. And that space, that sense of detachment, lets you choose how you react.
I can take action to make it better if I can, but I don't have to let the pain control me or define who I am.
That's it. You can be present with it.
But not swallowed up by it.
Precisely. And that's where Tolle's ideas about transformation come in. He says that even the hardest things we go through, the limit situations, those can be catalysts for awakening.
So even those times when I feel like my world is ending can be opportunities for growth.
Exactly. Tolle says those limit situations often make us face our deepest fears and let go of things we're holding on to too tightly. They can break down that illusion of control that the ego loves so much.
So it's kind of like the caterpillar analogy again.
Yeah.
It seems like a breakdown, but it's actually a necessary step to become something new.
And beautiful.
Precisely. And
Wow.
this brings us to a crucial point: conscious choice. Even when things are really tough, Tolle says we always have the power to choose how we respond. We can react unconsciously, get sucked into negativity.
Or we can surrender to the now and let it transform us.
Exactly. And that choice, that act of surrender, can change everything. Instead of feeling like a victim of circumstance, we become empowered to create our reality.
This is really coming together for me. Tolle isn't about running from the world or avoiding pain.
Right.
It's about learning to really live, to embrace everything, and find freedom and fulfillment in every moment. And it's about realizing that we're not on this journey alone. We're all connected, part of this incredible evolution of consciousness. And as we become more present and aware in our own lives,
We're contributing to a larger shift.
yes,
Yeah.
towards more love, more compassion, more peace.
That's beautiful. It gives me hope. So as we wrap up our deep dive into the power of now, what's one final thought you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I think Tolle says it best. Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness. How do you know this is the experience you need? Because this is the experience you're having at this moment. Embrace this moment with all of its challenges and opportunities. That's where transformation happens. That's where you find your purpose.
That's a powerful reminder. And for all of you listening, I really encourage you to pick up the power of now and explore these teachings for yourselves. See what speaks to you, what challenges you, what inspires you to live more fully in this moment. It's a journey worth taking, and I have a feeling it will lead you to some amazing discoveries. Until next time, may you find peace, joy, and the power of the now in every aspect of your life. Okay, so we've talked about a lot: the pain body, being present, surrendered action, how even tough relationships can help us grow. But I want to go back to something you mentioned earlier. You're saying how our darkest moments can actually help us wake up. Can you explain that a little more?
Sure. Remember those limit situations, the ones that really shake us up. Tolle thinks those can be incredibly transformative, even though they're usually pretty painful.
So you're saying those times when everything feels like it's falling apart could actually be chances to grow. I get it on a mental level, but emotionally, it's hard to accept that.
That's understandable. We naturally want to avoid pain. It's human. But think of it like this. A seed has to break open to sprout and grow, right? Sometimes we need to be broken open too, to let go of old patterns and beliefs. That's how we really transform.
Okay, I can see that analogy. But what does that actually look like? How do we use those tough times to actually help us grow?
Tolle says the key is surrender, to just let yourself feel the pain. Don't resist it. Now, it's not saying to wallow in it or feel sorry for yourself.
Right.
It's about being present, with whatever is happening. Acknowledge it without judgment. Don't deny it.
So instead of trying to numb myself or ignore the pain, I lean into it. That seems so backwards, but I think I'm getting it.
It's about understanding that pain is trying to tell us something. It's a signal. When we resist pain, we're blocking the message. We stop ourselves from learning and growing.
That's powerful. Accepting the pain means opening myself up to the lesson it's trying to teach.
Exactly. And that lesson often leads to some really profound insights. You understand yourself and the world in a whole new way. It can help you figure out what's truly important to you, to let go of what's not serving you, to be more authentically you.
This reminds me of something Tolle wrote. Life will give you whatever experience is most helpful for the evolution of your consciousness.
That's a great one. It really highlights the idea that there's something bigger at play here, even in our struggles. We may not always get why things happen, but we can trust that every experience, even the painful ones, is pushing us towards something better.
That is reassuring. Even when we feel totally lost and alone, we're not really alone.
Right. There's something bigger than us supporting us, always. Which leads to how Tolle sees death, which can be a scary subject. He says that our fear of death comes from how much we identify with the ego, that limited sense of self that we've created.
So if I can let go of my attachment to the ego,
Yeah.
I can let go of my fear of death. Sounds easy, but I bet it's really hard to actually do.
It takes practice for sure. But remember, Tolle's whole thing is about cultivating awareness of the present moment. And when we're totally present, here and now, there's no fear, because fear is always about what might happen in the future.
So if I shift my focus to right now, I'm basically getting rid of the fear that comes from worrying about what happened or what might happen.
Exactly. And as we get more used to being in the now, we also get more comfortable with things ending. Recognizing that everything's constantly changing, nothing stays the same, death is just part of the cycle.
It's not something to be afraid of.
Yeah.
It's a natural transition.
Yes. And accepting that, being okay with the fact that things end, that actually frees us to live more fully now. We appreciate life more. We really experience it.
Like that saying, live every day like it's your last. We're not talking about being careless.
Not at all. It's about being awake in your life, making choices that matter, and being grateful for this gift.
So it's not denying death. It's embracing life, knowing everything changes, and that each moment is precious.
Beautifully said. That's what Tolle's all about, isn't it? Embracing it all, the good, the bad, the in-between, learning to find peace and joy right here, right now, no matter what, and recognizing that we're all in this together, part of this amazing unfolding universe.
I love that. And I want to thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. I know we just scratched the surface of the power of now, but I feel so much hope and inspiration. And to everyone listening, I encourage you to dive into Tolle's work for yourselves. See how it resonates with you, what it makes you think about, how it inspires you to be more present. It's a journey that's worth it. And I think you'll discover some pretty incredible things along the way. Until next time, may you find peace, joy, and the power of the now in every aspect of your life.